What happens when royalty meets reality and the crown can't protect you from the truth? In just 36 seconds, one comment turned a simple interview into an explosive meltdown that got a prince thrown off one of radio's biggest shows. Before we expose this shocking moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we're pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this outrageous behavior. Howard Stern Studio, the place where celebrities come to be real, to be vulnerable, to show the side of themselves the public rarely sees. For decades, Howard has built his reputation on getting people to open up, to tell the truth, to drop the act. And on this particular day, Prince Harry was sitting across from him, ready for what was supposed to be a candid conversation about his life, his struggles, his journey away from the royal family. The interview started normally enough. Howard welcomed Harry to the show, the audience applauded, and Harry seemed comfortable. He was smiling, relaxed, ready to talk. Howard has this gift of making people feel at ease, even when he's asking the hard questions. And that's exactly what people tune in for. They want the real story, not the polished, rehearsed answers you get on morning television. "So Harry, welcome to the show," Howard said, his voice warm and inviting. "It's great to have you here. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time." "Thanks for having me, Howard," Harry replied. "I've heard a lot about your show. It's quite legendary." "Legendary, huh?" Howard laughed. "I like that. Well, we try to keep things real here. No fake stuff, no pretending, just honest conversation. That work for you?" "Absolutely," Harry said. "That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm tired of the fake stuff too." And that's how it began. Two guys just talking. Or at least that's what it seemed like. Howard started with some easy questions. How was Harry adjusting to life in America? What was it like leaving behind everything he knew? How did he spend his days now that he wasn't doing royal duties? Harry answered each question with what seemed like genuine honesty. He talked about the freedom he felt, the relief of not being under constant scrutiny, the joy of being able to make his own choices. "You know, Howard," Harry said, leaning forward in his chair, "people don't understand what it's like living in that world. Everything you do is watched, judged, criticized. You can't just be yourself. You have to be this perfect image all the time." "I can imagine that's tough," Howard said, nodding. "But you grew up in it, right? You knew that life from day one." "I did," Harry admitted. "But knowing it and living it are two different things. Just because you're born into something doesn't mean it's right for you." Howard nodded again, understanding in his eyes. This was good conversation. This was real. The audience was listening, engaged, wanting to hear more. Howard moved forward with another question, this time about Harry's family. "So let's talk about your family," Howard said. "There's been a lot of tension there, a lot of public back and forth. How do you deal with that? How do you handle having private family issues become worldwide news?" Harry's expression changed slightly. The ease that had been there moments before seemed to tighten. "It's not easy," he said. "When you're trying to protect the people you love and the media is twisting everything, making up stories, it becomes impossible. But here's the thing," Howard said, his tone still friendly but more direct now. "You and your wife have done a lot of interviews too. You've told your story publicly. Some people might say you're contributing to the media circus you're complaining about. What do you say to that?" And there it was. The first sign of tension. Harry's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed just slightly. "That's not fair, Howard," he said, his voice taking on an edge. "We're telling our story. That's different from the lies the tabloids print." "I'm not saying it's not different," Howard replied calmly. "I'm just saying, when you go on Oprah, when you do Netflix documentaries, when you write books about your private life, you're opening the door. You're inviting people in. You can't be surprised when they have opinions." "Opinions are fine," Harry shot back. "But there's a difference between opinions and attacks. There's a difference between commentary and cruelty." Howard held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Hey, I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking questions. That's what we do here. That's what you signed up for when you came on the show." "I signed up for a conversation," Harry said, his voice rising slightly. "Not an interrogation." The energy in the room shifted. You could feel it. The relaxed, friendly atmosphere was gone, replaced by something sharper, something uncomfortable. Howard, to his credit, didn't back down. He's been doing this too long to let a guest dictate how the interview goes. "Harry, this is a conversation," Howard said, his voice still calm but firmer now. "But if you come on my show, You answer my questions. That's how this works. I'm not here to just let you promote whatever you want to promote. I'm here to have a real discussion. Real discussion? Harry repeated, letting out a short, bitter laugh. You're sitting there judging me, judging my life, judging my choices. You have no idea what I've been through. You're right, I don't, Howard agreed. That's why I'm asking. That's why we're talking. But you can't come on here and expect me to just agree with everything you say. That's not honest. That's not real. Harry shook his head, clearly frustrated. This is exactly the problem. Everyone thinks they know better. Everyone thinks they have the right to tell me how I should have handled my life. I'm not telling you how you should have handled anything, Howard said. I'm asking you to explain your choices. There's a difference. Is there? Harry challenged. Because it sounds like judgment to me. Howard leaned back in his chair, studying Harry carefully. Look, I respect what you've been through. I really do. Losing your mother the way you did. Growing up in the spotlight. Dealing with all that pressure. I can't imagine it. But you made choices, Harry. You chose to leave. You chose to do these interviews. You chose to make your private life public. And when you do that, people are going to have questions. They're going to want to understand why. I don't owe anyone an explanation, Harry said, his voice cold now. You don't? Howard agreed. But then why are you here? Why did you come on my show if you don't want to talk about it? Harry didn't answer right away. He just stared at Howard, and the silence stretched out, awkward and tense. Finally, he spoke. I came here because I thought you were different. I thought you understood what it meant to be honest. I am being honest, Howard said. Honest means asking the hard questions. Honest means not pretending everything you've done is perfect. Nothing I've done is perfect, Harry snapped. But at least I'm trying. At least I'm standing up for what I believe in. And what's that? Howard asked. What exactly are you standing up for? My family? Harry said immediately. My wife, my children, their safety, their happiness, their right to live without being hunted by photographers and torn apart by the media. I get that, Howard said. I really do. But you're living in a mansion in California. You're signing multi-million-dollar deals. You're on magazine covers. You're not exactly hiding from the spotlight. Harry's face flushed red. So what? I'm not allowed to make a living? I'm not allowed to support my family? Of course you are, Howard said. But you can't have it both ways. You can't complain about the media attention while actively seeking it out. I'm not seeking it out, Harry insisted. I'm trying to control my own narrative by doing more interviews, more shows, more content, Howard said. Do you see the contradiction there? There's no contradiction, Harry said, his voice rising again. You just don't understand. Then help me understand, Howard challenged. Explain it to me. Explain to everyone listening why you're the victim here. I never said I was a victim, Harry shot back. But that's how you're acting, Howard said bluntly. Like the world owes you something. Like you're the only person who's ever had a hard life. Harry stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Actually, you do, Howard said, not moving from his seat. You agreed to this interview. You don't get to just walk out because you don't like the questions. Watch me, Harry said, pulling off his microphone. Sit down, Howard said, his voice commanding now. We're not done here. We're absolutely done, Harry said. This whole thing was a mistake. The mistake is you thinking you can come on my show and not be challenged, Howard said, standing up now too. I've interviewed presidents, rock stars, actors, activists, people way more famous than you, and every single one of them had the guts to answer the tough questions. But you? You can't handle 5 minutes of real conversation. Real conversation? Harry repeated, laughing bitterly. This isn't conversation. This is you trying to tear me down. I'm trying to understand you, Howard said. But you're so wrapped up in your own story, your own pain, your own grievances that you can't see anything else. You don't know anything about my pain, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. You're right. I don't, Howard said. But I know what self-pity looks like, and I know what entitlement looks like. And I'm seeing both right now. The room went completely silent. Even the producers behind the glass seemed frozen. Harry stood there, staring at Howard with pure fury in his eyes. How dare you, Harry said quietly, his voice dangerous. How dare you call me entitled? If the shoe fits, Howard said, shrugging. I gave up everything, Harry said, his voice getting louder. I walked away from my entire life, my family, my country. I gave up a future as a working royal. I gave up security, stability, everything I knew. And you're calling me entitled? You gave up a life of luxury and privilege for a slightly different life of luxury and privilege, Howard said. Forgive me if I'm not breaking out the violin. This is unbelievable, Harry said, shaking his head. I thought you were supposed to be this great interviewer, this guy who gets people. But you're just like everyone else. You're just another person who wants to take shots at me. I don't want to take shots at you, Howard said. I want you to be real. I want you to admit that maybe, just maybe, some of the criticism you've received is valid, that maybe you've made some mistakes, that maybe you're not the hero of this story, and maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. Harry shot back. Howard laughed, but there was no humor in it. There it is. When you can't win the argument, go for the personal insult. You've been insulting me this entire time, Harry said. I've been asking you questions, Howard corrected. The fact that you feel insulted says more about you than it does about me. Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. Great, Howard said. The door's right there. You know what your problem is, Howard? Harry said, turning back to face him. You're jealous. You're just some radio guy who wishes he had the life I have. You wish you had the platform I have. You wish people cared about you the way they care about me. The room went dead silent again. Everyone knew Harry had just crossed a line. Howard's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. Is that what you think? Howard asked quietly. It's obvious, Harry said, emboldened now. You're a nobody trying to make yourself feel important by tearing down somebody. It's pathetic. Howard walked slowly around his desk, standing face to face with Harry now. Let me tell you something, he said, his voice low and controlled. I built this show from nothing. I worked my way up from playing records at a nothing station to having one of the most successful shows in radio history. I did it by being real, by being honest, by not pretending to be something I'm not. I don't need a title. I don't need a crown. I don't need my grandmother to tell me I matter. I proved it every single day for 40 years. Good for you, Harry said sarcastically. And you? Howard continued, his voice getting harder. You were born into relevance. You didn't earn it. You didn't work for it. It was handed to you on a silver platter. And the moment things got hard, the moment you actually had to deal with real problems, you ran. You quit. And now you spend your time crying about how unfair it all is. I didn't run, Harry said through clenched teeth. I left a toxic situation. You left because you couldn't handle it, Howard said. You left because being a prince was too hard. Poor you. Meanwhile, there are people out there working 3 jobs to feed their kids. There are people fighting cancer. There are people dealing with real problems. But sure, let's all feel sorry for the prince who had to give up his free mansion. You don't understand anything, Harry said, his face completely red now. I understand that you're standing in my studio in a $2,000 suit calling me pathetic, Howard said. I understand that you're so disconnected from reality that you actually believe you're the victim here. I understand that you came on my show expecting me to kiss your ring, and when I didn't, you threw a tantrum. I'm not throwing a tantrum, Harry insisted. Could have fooled me, Howard said. You're acting like a spoiled child who didn't get his way. And you're acting like a bully? Harry shot back. A bully? Howard repeated. I asked you some questions. That's my job. If you can't handle that, then you shouldn't be doing interviews. You should go back to your mansion and hide behind your security team. At least I don't hide behind a microphone, Harry said. At least I have the courage to put myself out there. The courage? Howard laughed. You think it takes courage to do interviews where you're guaranteed softball questions? You think it takes courage to talk to people who are scared to challenge you because you're a prince? That's not courage. That's cowardice. I came on your show, Harry reminded him. I knew you'd ask tough questions. And yet you're falling apart the second I actually do, Howard observed. I'm not falling apart, Harry said, but his voice was shaking now. Really? Howard gestured at him. Because from where I'm standing, you look like you're about 10 seconds away from crying. Go to hell, Harry said. Get out of my studio, Howard said, his voice final now. Gladly, Harry said, heading for the door. And Harry? Howard called after him. Next time you want to play the victim, make sure you're actually talking to someone who cares. Harry spun around, his face twisted with rage. You know what? You're just bitter. You're a bitter old man who hates seeing other people happy. You can't stand that I had the guts to leave a situation that was killing me. You can't stand that I chose my happiness over duty. I don't care about your happiness, Howard said honestly. What I can't stand is you acting like you're some kind of revolutionary for quitting your job and moving to California. What I can't stand is you pretending you're this champion of mental health while you publicly trash your family. What I can't stand is you selling your story over and over again while complaining about privacy. My family deserves to be called out, Harry said. They treated my wife horribly. They treated me horribly. Maybe they did, Howard said. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I do know that instead of handling it privately, instead of working it out like adults, you ran to the media. You did exactly what you claimed to hate. I had no choice, Harry insisted. There's always a choice, Howard said. You chose the nuclear option. You chose to burn every bridge. You chose to make your private family drama into a public spectacle. Own it. Stop pretending you're the innocent one here. I am innocent, Harry said. I'm the one who got driven out. You drove yourself out, Howard countered. You made demands. You wanted to be half in, half out. You wanted the perks of being royal without the responsibilities. And when they said no, you threw a fit and left. That's not what happened, Harry said. Then what did happen? Howard challenged. Tell me. Explain it to me in a way that makes you look like anything other than a spoiled brat who couldn't get his way. Harry's hands were shaking now. I protected my family. I did what I had to do to keep them safe. Safe from what? Howard asked. Safe from having their picture taken? Safe from being written about in newspapers? Welcome to being famous. That's the deal. If you didn't want that life, you should have given up the title, given up the money, and disappeared. But you didn't. You wanted to keep the fame, keep the platform, keep the Netflix deals. You just didn't want any of the downsides. The downsides include people like you, Harry said viciously. People who make money by tearing others down. People who pretend to care about mental health until it's time to interview someone, and then you just attack. I'm not attacking you, Howard said for what felt like the 100th time. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. And if you can't tell the difference, that's your problem, not mine. You're impossible, Harry said. No, I'm honest, Howard corrected. And you can't handle honesty. You want everyone to tell you you're brave and strong and doing the right thing. You want validation, not conversation. You want an echo chamber, not an interview. What I want is respect, Harry said. Respect is earned, Howard said. It's not automatic just because you have a title. I don't use my title, Harry protested. Yes, you do, Howard said. It's literally how you're billed everywhere, Prince Harry. You can't stop being a prince when it's convenient. You don't get to use the title when it helps you and hide from it when it doesn't. Harry's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. Finally, he said, You're twisting everything I say. I'm not twisting anything, Howard said tiredly. I'm just not letting you get away with the narrative you've created. And that clearly bothers you. What bothers me is people like you who think they know my life better than I do, Harry said. I don't know your life, Howard said, but I know when someone is full of it. And right now, you're so full of it, I'm surprised you can still stand up straight. That's it, Harry said, his voice cold and final. I'm leaving, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I'm going to tell them how you ambushed me, how you attacked me, how you showed zero compassion or understanding. Go ahead, Howard said, completely unfazed. Tell whoever you want. Put it in your next book. Do another interview. I really don't care. Because everyone who listens to this show will hear exactly what happened here. They'll hear me asking fair questions, and you losing your mind because you couldn't handle them. Fair questions? Harry repeated incredulously. You called me entitled. You called me a coward. You called me spoiled. And you called me a nobody? Howard reminded him. You called me pathetic. You called me jealous. So don't act like you're the only one who got insulted here. The difference is I was defending myself, Harry said. So was I, Howard replied. They stood there, glaring at each other. The tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The producers were frantically signaling through the glass, not sure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. This was car crash radio. This was the kind of thing people would be talking about for years. I want you to know something, Harry said, his voice shaking. I came here in good faith. I came here trying to be open, trying to be vulnerable, and you threw it back in my face. You proved exactly why people don't trust the media. You proved exactly why I left that toxic world behind. I didn't prove anything except that you can't handle being questioned, Howard said. Everyone else who comes on this show manages to get through it without having a meltdown. Actors, politicians, athletes, they all sit in that chair and answer whatever I ask them. But you couldn't make it 30 minutes? Because you weren't asking questions, Harry said. You were attacking. Asking you to explain yourself is not an attack, Howard said, exasperation creeping into his voice now. Asking you to take responsibility for your choices is not an attack. Asking you to see things from another perspective is not an attack. But you're so convinced that everyone is out to get you that you can't tell the difference anymore. Everyone is out to get me, Harry said. There it is, Howard said, throwing his hands up. There's the victim mentality I was talking about. Poor Harry. Everyone's against him. The whole world is conspiring to make his life hard. Give me a break. You don't know what it's like, Harry repeated. You're right, I don't, Howard said. But I know what it's like to work hard. I know what it's like to earn what you have. I know what it's like to build something from nothing. And I know what it's like to be grateful for the opportunities you've been given instead of complaining about them constantly. I am grateful, Harry said. You have a funny way of showing it, Howard observed. Harry grabbed the door handle, yanking it open. This interview is over. It was over 10 minutes ago, Howard said. You just didn't want to admit it. Harry paused in the doorway, turning back one last time. You're going to regret this, Howard. I doubt it, Howard said calmly. But hey, prove me wrong. Go ahead and tell your side of the story. I'm sure people will be very interested to hear how the big, bad radio host was mean to the poor prince. Mock me all you want, Harry said. But at least I stand for something. At least I'm trying to make a difference. Standing for something means more than just saying you stand for something, Howard said. It means actually doing the work. It means taking criticism. It means being humble enough to admit when you're wrong. You don't do any of that. You just talk about how hard your life is and expect everyone to feel sorry for you. I never asked anyone to feel sorry for me, Harry said. Then why are you here? Howard asked one final time. Why do you keep doing these interviews if not to get sympathy? Why do you keep telling your story if not to make yourself the hero and everyone else the villain? Harry didn't answer. He just stared at Howard with pure hatred in his eyes, then walked out, slamming the door behind him so hard the walls shook. Howard stood there for a moment, then walked back to his desk and sat down. He looked into the camera, at his audience, and shook his head. Well, he said, his voice returning to its normal tone, that was something. That was really something. He picked up his coffee, took a sip, and continued. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've had people walk out before. I've had people get angry before. But that was different. That was a guy who came in here expecting to be treated like royalty, literally, and couldn't handle being treated like everyone else. He leaned back in his chair. And you know what the sad thing is? He probably really believes he's the victim here. He probably really thinks I ambushed him, that I was unfair, that I was cruel. He can't see that all I did was ask him to explain himself. That's it. That's all I wanted. Some honesty, some self-awareness, some acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, he's not perfect. Howard paused, collecting his thoughts. But instead, he came in here with his walls up, his defenses ready, convinced that everyone was against him. And when I didn't play along with that narrative, when I didn't let him be the victim, he lost it. He completely lost it. The producer's voice came through Howard's headphones, but he waved it off. No, let me finish, he said. This is important, because what just happened here is bigger than one interview. It's bigger than one person. What just happened here is what happens when someone is so convinced of their own righteousness that they can't see anything else. When someone is so wrapped up in their own story that they can't hear anyone else's perspective. He looked directly at the camera. And look, I get it. The guy's been through some stuff. Losing his mom the way he did, that's terrible. Growing up in that world, that's hard. I'm not saying his life has been easy, but it hasn't been the hardest either. And at some point, you have to stop using your past as an excuse for your present. Howard took another sip of his coffee. At some point, you have to take responsibility for your choices. You have to own your decisions. You have to stop blaming everyone else for your problems. And he can't do that. He won't do that. Because doing that would mean admitting he's not the hero of his own story. And that's something he's just not willing to do. The studio was quiet now, everyone processing what had just happened. Howard looked around at his team, seeing the shock on their faces. Sorry, folks, he said with a slight smile. I know that got intense, but sometimes that's what happens when you ask real questions. Sometimes people can't handle the truth. And sometimes the truth is that the person sitting across from you is more interested in being right than being real. He shuffled some papers on his desk. Anyway, that's the show. That's what you came here for, right? Real moments, real conversations, no filter, no pretending, just honest-to-goodness human interaction, even when it gets ugly. Howard glanced at the door Harry had slammed. And it definitely got ugly. But you know what? I don't regret a single question I asked. I don't regret challenging him. Because that's my job. That's what I do. I ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. I say the things everyone else is thinking but won't say. And if that makes me the bad guy in someone's story, then so be it." He looked back at the camera, his expression serious. "Because at the end of the day, I can sleep at night knowing I was honest. I can look at myself in the mirror knowing I didn't kiss anyone's ring. I didn't bow down to anyone's title. I treated him like I treat everyone else who sits in that chair. With respect, yes, but also with the expectation that they'll be real with me." Howard stood up, signaling the interview really was over now. He couldn't do that. He couldn't be real. And that's on him, not me.